Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with an extra special race at Sardinia in the new Red Bull X 2019 car. So in this race, as you're going to see, there's some big names there. We've got Super GT starting in this race also, and down in P18, not setting a qualifying time, is IOF Racing, otherwise known as Igor Fraga. Now this is his European account. This isn't his main account. This is actually his account where he goes on, starts from the back in our region, just like I do when I go to the American region, etc. As we're about to start this race, one traction control, we're going to jump through to the replay camera for the start of this action as I get a nice start, not the best start. We've got Calster to our right, a pad player, so this is good for you to judge just how competitive the pads can be on this game as well. Going into turn one, we get ourselves in lead. P2 puts the power down too early and he's off. There's a bit of chaos there. 2 or 3 cars running wide, giving myself a nice little, maybe about 1.5 second lead at the moment to P2. Calster stuck behind P2 at the moment. That'll be interesting to see what the gap is when he gets past him, to see how much time we've got over P2, you know, because P2 at the moment is not the fastest driver in the world, but Calster is definitely one of the top drivers. However, we need to try and get on this now and push to the very end, because we've got IOF Racing, you know, Igor Fraga in this race, the world champion on Gran Turismo Sport at the present moment. One of the fastest drivers in the world, in my opinion, probably equal to TRL Lightning. So let's have a little look at Igor Fraga's opening stint there from the start, how he got away. Reasonable start, got a very good jump off the line, I think he made up one place there. Decided to go down the left hand side, a lot of chaos ahead of him, braked very early, you could see, trying to avoid a lot of trouble. Stays on the inside, trying to get a jump through there, and actually puts himself up to P12, but then gets on the curb. Bit of an oversteer moment, manages to catch it, loses a few positions there, so quite a costly mistake, maybe a second loss there, so that could be very, very valuable to him by the end of the race. But let's see, does he make any more position? Another position there where a car's gone off, so he's actually got a little bit lucky with a couple of drivers gone off. We saw a very fast driver go off at turn 1, WDP, very quick driver, and he went off there and lost space. But then again, another place gained, 2 places gained there. Now he's up to P12 and he's not even a half a lap in, so very nice start there from Igor, putting himself into contention to push this race to the very end already. So we're going to jump back on board with myself there. We've got the 2 cameras there while we continue with my action. You can see in the bottom left hand corner we've got Igor Fraga's camera. Top right hand corner is the replay camera following myself, and you will see Calster popping in there in the distance. So Calster got to be 1.7 seconds behind us, 1.8 seconds behind us when he eventually got past P2. So now we've got to just keep on this and try and maintain that gap to Calster. Calster, very consistent driver, obviously on the pad as well. And you do find that the pad is very strong with cars like this in general. You will see a lot of top times being done in very fast, high downforce cars by pad players. So this is going to be a real battle. Calster is probably one of the quickest pad players out there. I think there's only a couple of drivers on the pad that can match Calster in terms of outright speed and especially consistency. So we've got to stay on it. We did do a couple of bottle jobs early on. We've definitely picked up our pace recently. This was on the first day of this race, so chances of mistakes being made are quite high, so the pressure is on for this race. You will notice if you go to the live stream, I didn't really talk during this race because I was 100% concentrating and trying to push, because if you notice there, Igor Fraga is up to P7. You can see him on the left hand side pushing, obviously pushing very aggressive, and not far behind Super GT there. Super GT and P5, 2 places ahead of Igor there. And Calster, again, just matching myself and Calster very evenly matched in terms of race pace at the moment. We jump on board with Igor, going for a move to put himself into P6, just behind Super GT there, and Super GT right behind P4, obviously trying to get past them. And will Super GT fight this position to Igor? I'm not too sure if he'll battle it too hard. Not really much point in battling Igor. Igor is a very fast driver. You'll see now Igor's going to go down the right hand side. He's going to brake very, very late there. A bit too late, but squares the car off, gets on the pound nice and early, and actually gets a jump back past Super GT's there. So a move made. A little bit late on the brakes, but he made the move work still. And now up into P5 and picking up the slipstream from P4 because of that extra speed he got from the exit. So he's going to get himself up to P4 before, pretty much as we complete 1 lap. So this is going to be really interesting. How far behind will he be after 2 laps in this race? We're going to try and give you updates as we go through this race, just how far the gap is to myself compared to Igor as we go through multiple laps. I'm not going to do it every lap, it'll be like every 2 or 3 laps. We're going to give you a little update on screen just to show you the gap, and we're going to ride on board now with Igor and just watch as he pushes this car, really trying to get himself into that top 3. so he can then just concentrate on ultimate lap times to catch Calster up and myself. And will he be able to do it? This is going to be very interesting. So riding on board, you can see the little bit of lag you see is not because he's on a control pad, so you might see it jerking around a bit. This is because he's driving from a long way away. You know, he's not a European driver. He is in the other region, for the America regions, I think it is, around that one of them regions. So he's going to get a lot of lag. That movement is just lag. It's not because he's on a control pad. He is actually on a Thrustmaster T-GT, the same as myself. And we've raced him multiple times. Very, very fast driver. You know, the current GT Sport world champion and the best on the game according to the stats. You know, with the world champion, I still think that TRL Lightning and Igor are pretty much a 50-50 match. You know, there is not much between these two drivers. They are identically paced. You put them in a race together and it could be insane. I really hope we can get to do that one day as we go over the line. And you see there, as he goes over the line, he's 7.4 seconds behind us. So on start of lap 4, so 3 laps completed, he's got the gap down to 7 seconds. So this is going to be a really interesting battle because he's got 10 laps to go and he's only got to get rid of 7 seconds. Now Igor in general can be up to a second a lap quicker than a lot of people because he's so fast. Unbelievable race pace. That's where Igor seems to excel, in my opinion. His race pace is really, really strong, especially in cars like this. Now he's known for driving high downforce cars extremely fast. That's where he normally does his best results. We saw him in the official World Tour event, I think about 6 months ago, absolutely flying in the Circuit de la Sarthe race in the X 2014. Unbelievable driving inside the car. So this is going to be a real battle for myself and Calster to stay ahead as we're on board with the replay camera. Have a little look where Calster is. You'll just see him popping in the background just as we go through there. He's around 2 seconds behind still as we going into that heavy braking zone. You just seen Calster there just popping into the replay camera. We're pushing really hard at the moment, but we're trying to do a little bit of fuel saving as well. Calster, I think, did a little bit more saving during this open stint than I did, mainly just by shifting that fraction short of the rev bar around about 80%. You lose a little bit of lap time, but you save a bit of fuel at the same time. So going down into turn 1 to start this lap 5, you can see there the gap to Calster, 2.3 seconds. So we've gained all of about 2 tenths in about 2 or 3 laps. So this shows you how close the racing is, and it's extremely tense races, I have to tell you. I love races like this. This is why we play GT Sport, for racing like this. Pushing to the limit. You've got the world's best driver in this lobby. We've got Calster as well, probably up there in the top 3 in terms of pad drivers. There's not many faster than him. I'd put him definitely up there with M. Thomas and I think it's Carl Lamb as well, also a pad user. So doing a great job there, Calster. Same within 2.3 seconds. Shows you just how competitive the pad can be at this game, and just to show you how competitive the pad is, and also in terms of, just to put this into perspective, at the moment now in the time trial, I'm currently P9 in the world, not in the EU, in the world. This is a very strong combination for myself. I feel at home at this track, especially now I've got more used to the race. I feel like I can push some of the top drivers in this game, and you're going to see now, just, you know, IOF Racing, Igor Fraga, he is so fast and he's going to gain time on us. And this is where you see, you know, that they just seem to be able to gain these vital 3 or 4 tenths every lap. These the best driver in the world, like TRL Lightning and Igor, and it really does show you that the gap is definitely getting closer to the very best for myself. I'm definitely improving, I think. As you see there, the gap to Igor now, a couple of laps later, down to 6.5 seconds. So he's gained 9 tenths over 2 laps. But I think he was using a little bit more fuel as we jump back on board with Igor now in P3, pushing really aggressively. We're on lap 6 now. Now this is going to be a down to what strategy do people run. In general, I preferred pitting lap 7 because you then get the fresher tyres at the end. When you put that bit more fuel in, you can drive maximum attack all the way to the end. However, with the situation in this race, I could see there was a nice gap. You can see it in the top right hand corner on the map. There's a big gap on the track there, just behind that train of cars, which I was hoping to come out in if I pitted lap 6. So my plan was pit on lap 6. We're going to put some reasonable fuel in. We're not going to go too aggressive. What I wanted to do was keep it fairly to how I've been driving the first stint, around like that 80 to 90% rev range. You still get good lap times in, but I didn't want to just overfill it and, you know, risk losing a position, because I expected Calster to have saved more fuel than me by a couple of percent, because in general when we were doing these first stints in other races, he did tend to be able to save that little bit more fuel than me. So it's going to be interesting though with IOF Racing what fuel he saved. My prediction was that IOF was using a bit more fuel because he would have wanted to just go 100% and really attack, because he had to come through traffic. So during that phase he's probably going to use up more fuel trying to burn away. So we go in the pits there, 43%. Now that's very interesting to keep an eye on that, because in general when you drive this track aggressive, I think it's about 12% fuel you use. So it's going to be close. I think Calster's going to have a little bit more fuel than me, and the reason I've went in the pits there is because if Calster does have a bit more fuel than me, at least pitting that one lap earlier is going to give me maybe a 1.5 second undercut on him. So I was going, I think we went into the pits around 2.4, 2.3 seconds, something like that ahead. If we can then get the 1 second, 1.5 second undercut, that puts it up to 3.7, near 4 seconds. However, if he's saved more fuel than me, that reduces it by a second. So I was hoping we'd come out around about 2.5 to 3 second gap, and then we've just got to try and hold on to the very end, even though we'll have one lap over the tyres, which in a race like this is the equivalent of 13 laps. I think it was times 13 tyre wear, as you can see. IOF really pushing now, very close to Calster, but Calster was doing the fuel saving. So I think when they go in the pits, you're going to see that IOF is going to drop back a bit and lose a little bit of time to Calster. It'll be really interesting to see, as we'll probably jump back on board with myself in a moment there to see what the gaps are and what the fuel usage of both Calster and IOF are as they go in the pits. As you see there, Calster in range of IOF now, so getting very nervous for him, knowing that IOF is coming behind him. And we're back on board with myself now, so we'll keep an eye on that left there. You see there, Calster in the pits with 30, I think that's 36% and 31% for IOF Racing. So you can see there that Calster had saved more fuel than me, about 3 or 4% more. IOF fairly similar, probably. I think IOF would probably use about the same, but maybe a little bit more actually, because I think he had been a bit more aggressive, so maybe 1 or 2% more than myself. So the gap's going to actually probably increase after the pit stop range. Plus I expected Igor to put more fuel in than what I did and Calster, so that he could drive really aggressively all the way to the end of this race. And you'll notice there also, as I've come out of the pit, you'll see I had a clean run. I came out with no real traffic, so that was really nice for me. But now starting lap 2, our first final lap on these tyres, we've got a little bit of traffic up ahead. However, this driver in front has not pitted yet. I think he was on the medium tyres, so we're going to catch him fairly fast. But one thing I didn't want to do was catch him towards the end of the lap and get within the slipstream range, because the dirty air on this track is really strong. You pick up the slipstream and you lose so much front end downforce. It's really tricky to take the really fast flowing corners flat out like we were doing when we have no traffic in front of us. As you see now, we're coming into this section that I'm talking about, very close to the wall there, on the pedal nice and early. So important to get the traction there to drive you up this section, because this is all about flat out and pure downforce. You're going to see as we throw it in here now, in 6th gear, we're going to just chuck it into this left hand corner, no lifting. We had to give it a little lift there, you see, a tiniest lift, because it didn't, I thought I was going to run wide, so we actually kind of backed out the corner slide, but luckily we didn't pick up the slipstream P1, which would have meant we would have had to back out even more through that section. So now we're going to get a little bit lucky as P1 decides to do his pit stop. He's going to have to go in the pits. He's on the medium tyre there, you see it there. He's going to pit, get rid of them tyres and probably put some softs on for the last stint. We go over the line with our personal best lap of a 1 minute 24.2. With that little lift, we probably lost out on maybe half a tenth to a tenth, so could have been a bit faster. But now you're going to see the gap to Igor is back up to 7.4 seconds. So this is really interesting. It shows you that he obviously had to do a little bit more, putting a little bit more fuel in at that stop to be able to push maximum to the very end now. As we now ride back on board with IOF Racing, Igor Fraga, as we go on board to see just how fast he takes these laps. Now this is his first flying lap on the fresh side, so let's have a little look, as he's going to clearly be pushing. You can see the gap has actually increased to Calster. You can see up front the gap was a lot shorter before, but because of that fuel saving that Calster did and myself had done a little bit, we've actually increased the gap a bit over him. So now he's got a lot of work to do, obviously, in this last stint to see how close he can get. Will he be able to get close enough to make a move on Calster? It's going to be interesting. I can tell you, when you know you've got drivers like Calster behind you and IOF Racing, it is extreme pressure, especially when you're streaming as well. Not a lot of people realise, but I definitely think if I wasn't streaming in general, we might be a little bit more consistent and possibly not much faster, but I think overall you might be maybe half a second to a second quicker over a race, because you genuinely make less mistakes when you've got no distractions, no chat going on. But to be honest, in this race, my focus was pretty much 100% on the race. I only picked up on a couple of bits from the chat, and maybe, like I say, maybe lost me half a second to a second over the whole race at most, really. But in these type of races, that can really make a difference. As you see there, he goes over the lap time with a new fastest lap of the race of 24.0. However, it wasn't a perfect lap. I think we saw him make a little bit of an error on that lap. So he's got a lot more potential, and I can tell you, we've raced in other races with him, and he definitely had more potential than that, as we're going to carry on board with him now as we start a second lap. And just look how he throws it into his corners. He stays in 4th gear through there, which is interesting. I actually go down to 3rd gear. I think he does that possibly to save a bit of fuel while he's still driving quite aggressive. And he actually goes down to 2nd gear on a corner, which I sometimes go down to 2nd, but not all the time. Very similar to how I do that corner. He takes it a very early upshift into 4th, gets on the power nice and early, and you get really good drive out that corner. That is pretty much identical to how I take that corner, and the rest is pretty much very similar. The driving styles on this track is a lot closer to when we compare it to a different track. When we were on Fuji, we were in different cars, so it was quite hard to compare the driving styles, but now we're in the same car. It's actually fairly similar. Extremely aggressive on the downshifting like I am. He brakes a lot later into this corner, the corner we're now on board with myself. I brake just short of that 100. He actually looked like he was braking basically on the 100 ball, so he must be really aggressively downshifting to brake late, and I think he squares the car off a little bit to get on the power a bit earlier. So very slight differences, but not as drastic as on the previous video we did comparing our pace to Igor. As we go over the line, starting lap 11, you can see that gap, and the gap to Igor is coming down. It's 6.1. However, this is not too bad. They've got 1 lap fresher tyres, which, like I say, is actually equivalent to 13 laps, and we've got the soft tyres on, so it is going to make a difference. You can see Calster just 2.4 seconds behind us. He's managed to increase his pace a bit, obviously with the fresher tyres on, so over a few laps he's gained maybe about 0.8 of a second on me, which is not bad for me. This is actually looking very nice, because I did expect Calster to push on a little bit more, but I actually drove the second stint really well, considering we pitted that lap earlier. The tyres don't start taking effect massively until about a lap 11, the lap we're on now. For the first few laps, it would literally be a 10th here, but if you're driving really well, it might not make a massive difference. But from now on, you're going to see the delta slowly come down. So we're down to 2.2 there, 2.3. It's going to fluctuate depending on the corners you're on. It is really intense, I can tell you. Seeing that gap coming down, I'm trying to push 100%. Calster's on it as well. He's driving as hard and as aggressive as you can. When you know that Igor is chasing you down, you have no option but to push 100%. And I think that Calster actually gave himself a bit more fuel to do that for his second stint. Same as Igor. Igor's got probably the most aggressive fuel setting, I think, at this point. He's able to really drive, that maximum attack all the way to the very end. And we've got 2 laps to go now with a 2-second gap to Calster. This is going to be very intense. You can see on the replay camera, Calster's gaining on me and Igor is gaining on Calster. And we've got I can afford to lose 1 second a lap to Calster, which is, you think it's nice, but when the tyres start going on this car, the rear becomes very, very tricky on power. So we're going to have to be very cautious while still trying to be very aggressive to make sure that we keep the lap times up, as I do love watching it. Just look how amazing this game's looking on the replay cameras. And one thing I'll say about this car is I much prefer it to the older version, because this feels a little bit more realistic, this car. It's got much less downforce. The lap times are nowhere near as fast as I think F1 cars will lap much faster than what this car will do. So it's really interesting that it's obviously a Red Bull car, but it's not anywhere near as fast as the current F1 car. So it shows you it's much more realistic to drive. The rear is a lot more unstable as we're pushing. Look at this now through there. Look how amazing the game looks. I love the way the cars are moving around. And Calster there, a little bit of lag, I think, in the background, but just look at that, all 3 cars on one screen as we come to this final lap. And Igor, starting from last place, has got himself in the mix now. We're coming into the very last corner to start the final lap. The gap is down to about 1.2 seconds, I think, or 1.5 seconds, something like that, to Calster, as we ride on board with Igor there, pushing 100% now to see if he can gain on Calster. He's got the gap to me down to 4 seconds, so it's looking quite safe to myself. My strategy to hold off Igor has worked in this race. It looks, I'm probably not going to lose 4 seconds to him, so his only real battle now is with Calster. Can he get himself into P2 with an amazing final lap in this race? Now, he's got the tyres equal to Calster. They've both got better tyres than myself, so I'm going to lose a little bit of time, but I'm probably not going to lose 4 seconds to anyone on this game on a final lap. I feel very confident at this track. I think my pace is very good compared to a lot of drivers. As you see there, Igor really driving aggressive. The rear was sliding where that loss of downforce kicks him why his rear right hand tyre is starting to take the wear. But an amazing drive by Igor to get this car as close to myself and Calster on the final lap. This is insane. You know, he started from last place, and it shows you just how fast Igor is. So the people that watch these live events thinking, yeah, I could do that, I could, you know, it's not as easy as it looks. This drive here is the world champion for a reason. He's an amazing driver in the game. Like I say, there's only a couple of drivers I think we can compare him to in TRL Lightning. I think Favaris as well. When Favaris is on it, I think I rate Favaris so much. I've rated him so, you've probably heard me say it in so many videos. If you jump back on board with myself, we're going to take this win in this race, managing to keep out the slipstream range from Calster, taking a 1.2 second lead over him. And you see there, Igor Fraga just under 3 seconds from myself, so he did gain a bit of time on that final lap with the better tyres, but we come away with the win. Calster in P2 and Igor in P3, and like I was saying, yeah, Favaris is probably another driver that I rate up there with IOF Racing and Lightning when it's a combination that he's really on fire on. I think there's not many faster than him, to be honest. As we come away with the win, and I have to say, thoroughly happy to get the win there. I was under a lot of pressure. I think we had quite a few viewers watching us live. I think it was over 300 viewers. So it was really down to, you know, just keeping cool, keeping it smooth, and just trying not to make any big mistakes. But what credit to IOF Racing. We need to applaud that speed and that show of driving skill. And we're going to actually show you another race with the same drivers in this. I think it was a race after or something like that. I think we moved on to the clear race, but then came back to this. So we're going to show you part 3. So episode 3 of this How Fast is the GT Sport World Champion will be uploaded in a few days. But before we do that, we have got an amazing race with the driver I was talking about before, Williams Favaris, again to show you just how fast these drivers are in general, and just to show you how hard it is to keep up with them. So hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you click that thumbs up button if you did enjoy this video, and also make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and click that notification button. Thanks again for watching, everyone.